More people in Singapore are dying with little to no family support, leaving no one to make their final arrangements. An often unseen network of funeral directors, charities, and social workers are stepping in, helping these individuals receive dignity in death. At least one charity reports the demand for pro bono rites has tripled in just 3 years, handling over 300 cases annually. The challenge could grow as the population ages and family sizes shrink. And for more, CNA's Sherlyn Seah joins us now in the studio. Now, Sherlyn, good to have you with us. First of all, can you tell us more about this issue and what got you started on this investigation?
Well, so I have been looking into this issue for a while, Angela, speaking to some of the organizations that support basically the people who themselves have no support. And what struck me was that a lot of these cases of people dying alone are actually more common, unfortunately, than we realize. So, of course, based on some publicly available statistics, the latest available figure shows that around 87,000 residents aged 65 and above were living alone in 2024. But we don't have any comprehensive, publicly tracked national figure for how many people do die alone, whether it's at home or in institutions. So the cases that we hear about from time to time may not even give us the full picture. So these are seniors. We're talking about those who live alone, those who are estranged from their families, and also those who simply maybe just they don't have anyone left. And this is why it's so important for the social workers to come in. And I had this rare opportunity to follow a group of them as they accompanied one senior on their last journey. And I was just notified the night before, and then immediately there was service the next day. Let's have a watch. I'm currently at Mandai Crematorium as I've been informed of a senior who has just passed away with no next of kin to make any arrangements. So there is no wake, there is no funeral service. Instead, he has been taken directly here for cremation. And I'm joining a group of social workers and volunteers who have come down to ensure that even in death, he will not be alone in this final journey.
In his final days battling cancer at hospice, he had no one, no partner, no children, no relative to plan his goodbye. But today, in this room, that emptiness is filled. Around 10 volunteers have come to see him off, strangers offering the presence and care of a family he never had. They have also arranged for a religious leader. With every hymn and flower laid, they offer him the peace and the dignity of a proper farewell.
It's the next day when here at the Garden of Peace in Chua Chu Kang for the scattering of the deceased ashes. Without family members to collect them, this would be his final resting place.
It's a simple ending. Social worker Adelina tells me this fulfills one of the man's final wishes, to have his ashes scattered somewhere peaceful.
We believe that everyone deserves someone in their life during their last stage. So no one deserves to be forgotten. We should handle with care and respect and make sure everything is in proper arrangement.
For Adelina, this deeply personal task is an almost daily routine. She stands in where loved ones are absent.
So you are not alone like you think you are.
Making sure that every life is honoured till the very end.
So, Sherlyn, are there organizations that really specialize in this? And how common are these cases?
Yes, Angela. So the group we've just featured, they specialize in helping these people with little or no family support in some of these end-of-life arrangements to carry out their last rites. And from my research, it seems like they are probably the biggest, if not one of the only very few in Singapore that do specialize in this kind of services. So they have around 800 volunteers overall, with 40 specifically trained in this area of helping out with such afterlife services. And it says that it has been seeing a growing number of such cases over the years. You know, it's been growing steadily to around 330 last year. They handled these pro bono funeral cases. And this year's number is already on track to be even higher. And I got also the chance to speak to one of the seniors under their care who has been making some arrangements in advance.
At 70 years old, Madam Teo spends most days alone in her rental flat after losing her husband 6 years ago.
我自己一个人嘛，又没有孩子，人忽然间就得了那个紧急的忧郁症，人医生叫我去 介绍我去看心理医生，那我说我不要，因为看心理医生要很多钱的嘞。那刚过世啊，我都没有做工。
She gets by with regular visits by social workers and the Ching Hong Welfare Service Society. They offer practical help and a much-needed listening ear. In 2012, the charity started helping seniors with no financial means or next of kin plan their funerals. And since then, cases have surged. It nearly tripled from 106 in 2021 to about 300 cases last year. Some are from its outreach efforts in lower-income neighborhoods. Others are referred by hospitals, nursing homes, or the police. The charity spends about $3,000 per case on average, all funded by donations and volunteers.
We just don't take care of the last rite. We actually take care a bit of the palliative care and a bit of their well-being. We will look after their holistic, bring it out for lunch, ensuring that they are taken care of. We also provide a grocery for them and sort of make sure that when they reach the tail end of their life, the services then stand up.
The charity says how seniors end up completely alone is often subtle.
I realized that as senior grows older, they tend to have a personality of its own, and then they become isolated. Even they maybe have siblings, or they have niece or nephew, they don't get in contact with them. So they just decided that they live on their own. And towards the tail end, especially towards the tail end, then they are not able to connect with the outside world.
These seniors, often in their 70s or 80s, are frequently unmarried, divorced, or battling chronic illnesses. But instead of dwelling on the past, the charity fulfills their final wishes. These can range from a special meal to tracking down estranged family members. And among them is Madam Teo, who has asked for a simple cremation.
我说放到大海里面去咯，这样咯。
Now, Sherlyn, despite this heartwarming support, are there still people who fall through the cracks?
Yes, Angela, unfortunately. So the program we just saw we featured is that they serve those who serve certain criteria. For example, if they're age 65 and above, they're living in a rental flat, receiving public assistance, having little to no family support, or if they suffer from a severe medical condition. And these are people who are already known in the system and they have that form of support in place. But for some, even the system or charities, unfortunately, can't reach them in time. And when they suddenly pass on, it may also be days before anyone even realizes that something is wrong. So this is where we've seen funeral homes, funeral service providers step in. They've been seeing more cases, and also more and more they have to, come into the picture when there's no family member available. And that's also because, as far as we know, there is no general legal requirement that says that a relative has to pay for these funeral expenses. Let's have a watch.
Every few months, Harmony Funeral Care is faced with a grim reality, a case where someone has died completely alone, their passing unnoticed for days.
Definitely, we have seen an increase in the number of cases where elderly, not just elderly, sometimes even the younger person may pass on without anyone knowing. Yeah, and usually they actually, I think when the corpse is discovered, it's usually because of the smell that comes off, or even certain form of liquids that leaks, and a neighbor might actually discover the death and then inform the authorities accordingly.
When police or social workers can't find or convince the next of kin to act, undertakers are asked to provide cremations for free. Harmony says many in the industry see it as a moral duty. That final journey often ends out at sea. Every few months, Direct Funeral Services charters a boat to scatter the ashes of 30 to 40 people each time. It handles over 120 pro bono cases a year. This fear of dying unnoticed is driving some to take drastic measures. One elderly man was so terrified of passing away alone, he asked the company to install a CCTV camera in his flat.
When the CCTV was in place, we check in on him regularly, every day, to make sure that he's always moving. And there was just this one occasion that he fell, and then He didn't move for quite a while, and immediately we went to his house to bring him to the hospital to check in on him, make sure everything is okay.
He later died after making his funeral arrangements in advance. Stories like his were why the funeral home set up a foundation to reach isolated seniors before it is too late.
Our main vision for them was to create events and activities to bring these people who live alone together, be it to the zoo or activities at the void deck. Then they get to mingle more. When they mingle more, they check in more with each other, and eventually when things happen or there's any accidents, response can be made in time.
Now, Sherlyn, this issue is not just confined to seniors living alone. Who else is affected?
Yes, unfortunately. So it's not just restricted to these groups in the community, but even in aged care institutions. And it's quite ironic also, right? Because you're lonely even in a place that's crowded with so many people. So there have been nursing homes who do contact some of these funeral providers directly. And in a way, they're essentially the staff acting as the next of kin because they have no one else. So some residents in these homes, they arrive with no known family. Sometimes it's because those family members have also passed on, or in worst cases, they've been abandoned. Others also may lose contact over the years, and nursing homes also can't get in touch with them. So nursing homes right now are even trying to address the issue quite upfront to prevent the issue of loneliness. Let's have a watch.
At S&M Nursing Home, about 3 in 10 residents have no family support, an increase from last year when it was around 2 in 10. This means that even in a crowded nursing home, they could be feeling lonely. Staff and volunteers try to fill that void through daily activities. After all, they may be the last familiar faces for residents here. The home's lead social worker remembers a public holiday 3 years ago.
And that day was Hari Raya. I went down to the mortuary to claim the body. That day I was actually very upset because that's when I realized if I'm not here, then this resident doesn't have anyone to come and claim the body. And this is actually reality. This is life for residents who don't have any family members. There's actually no one to do anything for them.
Determined to ensure lives are given dignity right up to the end, staff must step in.
You've got to make the effort to ensure that, they don't pass on thinking, mentally thinking that they are alone. When a resident passes on, we actually have a place within the nursing home to commemorate the memory of the resident who's passed on.
Over at Tai Hua Kwan Nursing Home, the goal is keeping seniors engaged while they are still alive. Around 7% of its over 280 residents do not have known family members. Others with relatives may find themselves isolated as visits dry up, especially those with dementia. That's why staff start sensitive conversations early.
In terms of communicating the final rites as well as the wishes for burial, especially for those without family members, we only do it for those who have mental capacity. Unfortunately, not all of them have mental capacity, and some of them may be a little bit sensitive about this issue.
For residents who cannot express their feelings, a crowded ward can cause them to shut down. But Mr. Adi says shared spaces can help.
Instead of traditional wards, residents here live in what are called households, and each one has its own lounge and dining area, designed to encourage interaction and to help residents stay socially connected, all to reduce the risk of loneliness and isolation.
It means the difference between living in an institution to feeling like an actual home in the last days of their lives.
Now, this situation could worsen, especially given Singapore's ageing population. So what more can be done to address this?
Yes, that's exactly right with the ageing population. So the government, as we know, they're already working with partners to address this issue and support seniors living alone. But I think the stakeholders that I spoke to, they all agree that more can be done and it has to be a whole of community effort. So first, of course, I think starting the most immediate vicinity, the most immediate step for us is to look out for the people around us, whether it's an elderly neighbour, if you notice that they've not been seen for some time, they're not following their usual routine, then perhaps it's time for a check-in. And secondly, also, there is a need to support the already largely unseen network we've seen in the stories and support their work, whether it's through volunteering, donating, providing some services to these charities, these funeral companies, and to help people, help them give people that dignified send-off. And another key point that they all agreed on also was to normalize end-of-life planning, because the topic to some may still be quite taboo, and they said that it definitely should continue to be broken. It's never too early to start planning for these rites. And that could mean recording, putting in on paper who should be contacted if anything happens, whether there are any preferences for their final rites, and whether resources have been put aside. So some ministries also pointed me to existing networks. We have the Silver Generation Office. You also have befrienders that go out to these units, to these seniors. And these are pathways that could be tapped on to engage these seniors in those kinds of conversations. So let's hear from an expert who has been studying this topic of aging.
So perhaps, we just need to engage with them. Right? And then I think once we engage, we try to normalize this. And once normalized, at least we have all the aspirations lined up, and then we can organize these, right? And then it won't be so random. It will be a systematic process in place where there are numbers to call, decisions have been made. We just execute the final request, and that's it.
So essentially, the broader message that we've seen across the board is that, planning for death may and should become of planning for old age as the time comes. And that could even include portioning out some funds for when the time comes, so that no one really reaches the end of life without any support.
Lots to think about there. Thanks for bringing this issue to light, Sherlyn. I've been chatting with Sherlyn Seah, who is a senior journalist.